SpongeBob Squarepants is one of the most successful animated television series out there. It's generated a whopping $13 billion over the years, and is without a doubt one of Nickelodeon's greatest successes. Created by marine science educator and animator Stephen Hillenburg, the show follows the lives of a couple of pals from Bikini Bottom with SpongeBob Squarepants himself at the wheel. While the gang gets themselves into all kinds of trouble through their wild escapades, the biggest trouble they get in is off-screen. Fans and critics of the show have pointed out that although the show is targeted at kids, there is a ton of adult humor that is far from age-appropriate. Today, we will be looking at some creepy hidden messages in the show and explaining where the animators went wrong.
Are ya ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
Since its launch in 1999, SpongeBob Squarepants has become a pop culture phenomenon and has been named as the top-rated animated show for children with millions of viewers each month. While SpongeBob's target audience is kids ages 6 to 11, there are a bunch of jokes that are definitely not age-appropriate. After rewatching some of the episodes, we are baffled that some of them got greenlit. The first theme that we will review that surfaces often is anatomy euphemisms. You might recall the scene where SpongeBob was buried under the sand except for his nose sticking out. Where Mr. Krabs approached him, he said that he hoped it was his nose, suggesting he might be having a little too much fun in the sun. While this scene may be meaningless to a young audience, the suggestiveness is not lost on us. Check yourself, Nickelodeon, we see you! The next episode under inspection is called Gary Takes a Bath from Season 2. In it, SpongeBob tries to coax his pet snail into washing up, but is met with much resistance. He tries various methods to get Gary in the tub, such as throwing a ball into the tub and strapping a bomb to himself and telling Gary that if he doesn't get in, he'll explode. At one point, SpongeBob hands Gary a bar of soap and says, "Don't drop it." For those of you who don't know, this could be referencing a joke about prison life that we won't explain in detail here. If you are interested, ask a trusted friend. Because of this moment, the episode was banned in the UK and Australia, and nearly banned in the US, so you know it's serious business. The next episode in question is called Sailor Mouth from Season 2. In it, SpongeBob and Patrick overhear Mr. Krabs using a curse word, don't worry it's bleeped out by a dolphin sound, and are enthralled by it. The two friends then proceed to use the word with total reckless abandon and terrorize Bikini Bottom with their newfound vocabulary. When this episode aired, a group called the Parents Television Council were less than amused. They took it upon themselves to make a report stating that the show was promoting children using profanity. In their eyes, satirizing swearing was not a laughing matter, and they wanted to shut it down. Though the episode aired in 2001, they filed their official report in 2005. Funnily enough, before this incident, the PTC had named SpongeBob as one of the best children's television programs on air. It looks like they changed their tune. In 2005, NBC News released a story titled "TV Ads Contribute to Child Obesity" and argued that SpongeBob was part of the problem. They discussed that the friendly yellow sponge was being paired with junk food that was predominantly high in calories and low in nutrition, a kind of diet that puts children's long-term health at risk. Imagine a kid going shopping with their guardian and seeing their old friend SpongeBob on a Pop-Tart box. Already the Pop-Tart is enticing by itself, but once you pair it with a kid's favorite cartoon, it becomes all the more alluring. The report asked Congress to confront advertisers for being so manipulative, and advocacy groups made plans to sue the production company for their unethical behavior. While there hasn't been any big victories that we've heard of, we are happy to see that Minions are being marketed with bananas now. Baby steps. The next example is a running joke that concerns SpongeBob's television. In multiple episodes, SpongeBob surfs through channels while Gary is in the other room. When he is alone, SpongeBob finds himself in a very interesting channel. What is shown on the screen is some very beautiful and somehow sensual sea coral that are swaying to music which SpongeBob watches intently. His eyes are wide as he watches, and is clearly mesmerized. When Gary walks in, he panics and switches the channel quickly to sports. What we can infer from this exchange is that what SpongeBob was watching was not G-rated. He is very frazzled and tries to play it off as a mistake, but what the animators are implying is that he was watching some adult television. Okay, we admit this isn't exactly a creepy hidden message, but we thought this next fact was worth mentioning. Did you know that SpongeBob wasn't always called SpongeBob? He originally had a different name entirely. We could have fallen in love with someone named, wait for it, SpongeBoy. Forget Spider-Man or Batman. SpongeBoy would have truly saved the day. Everything was set to go when the creators realized that it had been taken by a cleaning company. Voice actor Tom Kenny was the one who actually paired SpongeBob and SquarePants together, and since then, it's stuck. Stephen Hillenburg, the creator of the show, especially liked it because people would no longer think he was a piece of cheese who had found himself at the bottom of the ocean. Thus, SpongeBob was born, and thank God for that. So as we learned, not all parents are keen on SpongeBob, but it looks like there is more to it than that. In 2011, a study was done by the University of Virginia that stated that SpongeBob is actually messing with kids' memory retention. Their study went like this. They got a group of 4-year-old children to watch SpongeBob for 9 minutes, and another group to draw. Then immediately after, they asked both groups to do problem-solving and behavior tests. The kids that were drawing had no noticeable abnormalities, but the kids who watched SpongeBob had impairment in their tests. Apparently because the camera cuts away so quickly and so often, it causes young children to have worse attention spans. Lead investigator and psychology professor Angeline Lillard suggested that the children might be possibly identifying with the unfocused characters and adopting their characteristics themselves. You definitely wouldn't want your kid mimicking Patrick. Now, we would like to point your attention to a scene where SpongeBob is blowing up balloons. First off, these aren't just any balloons. They are not colorful, nor do they have any birthday messages on them. Rather, they're relatively colorless and very long in length. In the process of him blowing up the balloon, they begin to look more familiar to an adult audience. Most adults who watch this scene might say that what they are seeing is something meant for an adult bedroom rather than in the mouth of a sea sponge. While this could be a comment on how all our human garbage eventually finds its way to the ocean, we think it's actually just a dirty joke that was cleared by the censorship police. If you are a North American SpongeBob fan, chances are you've seen the scenes we're about to discuss. If you're from the UK, however, you never got a chance to see some of the scenes because of supposed inappropriate deviance. In the episode Life of Crime, the phrase "getting nailed" was understandably cut, and in Karate Choppers, a bit when Sandy Cheeks chopped a fish between her legs didn't even make it past storyboards. While definitely impressive, we agree that that moment was definitely uncalled for. Sadly, where Patrick and SpongeBob hold hands in the Fry Cook games, some countries decided that display of physical affection between men wasn't allowed, and it was cut. The cherry on top has to do with the episode Scaredy Pants, where SpongeBob gets his face shaved off. Was that really necessary? Did we need to see his exposed brain? Give us your answers in the comments. We're extremely interested to hear what you have to say about that one. Let's go back to people taking issue with Patrick and SpongeBob holding hands for a minute. There have been many assertions made that SpongeBob is gay, and because of all the unfortunate homophobia that is sweeping in the nation, many people challenged creator Hillenburg to speak up about his character's sexuality. In 2005, an evangelical group went as far as to boycott SpongeBob for being gay, and it added even more fire to the growing flame. Eventually, Hillenburg was forced to make a statement and decided to tell the fans that he saw his characters as somewhat asexual. Adding to that, Tom Kenny, the voice actor for SpongeBob, discussed in an interview that he saw SpongeBob as being naive and married to his job. All we have to say is that if that's the case, he would make a wonderful husband, making the best dang Krabby Patty Bikini Bottom has to offer. Next up, we'll be looking at the episode SpongeBob, You're Fired. This was one of the most controversial episodes because it showed SpongeBob losing his job and going on unemployment benefits, which spurred conversation on whether the show was being critical or supportive of welfare users. While SpongeBob is gutted after leaving the Krusty Krab, Patrick shows him a brand new world of being unemployed, which includes getting free food and having ample time to play. Fox News said that the episode was a cautionary tale on the dangers of welfare abuse. They were quick to mock those on welfare and thought that the episode aligned with their beliefs. Al Sharpton of MSNBC had something different to say. He piped up and defended those on welfare and was very much the counter to Fox. The fact that SpongeBob can spark serious debates between news outlets deserves a round of applause. In 2009, Burger King had the fabulous idea to team up with SpongeBob and create a parody of Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot. As the song is dedicated to the appreciation of women's bodies, focusing on some places more than others, people thought it was a tad strange that a children's icon was tied to the message. As you can probably guess, there was a bit of an uproar, and even people protesting the ad was sexist and inappropriately sexual. While the tagline was a tame, "I like square butts and I cannot lie," people were still not having it. If you're a fan of the TV show Friends, you might remember Ross singing this very song to his baby daughter Emma to get her to laugh. Which do you think is worse? Feel free to start a fully fiery debate in the comments below. There are some lines that the characters say that subtly hint at adult content, but aren't overtly clear. For example, during the episode when the Krusty Krab goes suddenly dark, Mr. Krab is confused and believes his eyes are failing him. In response, Squidward says, "No, Mr. Krabs, it's just that time of the month." Anyone with a uterus or anyone who has interacted with someone with a uterus probably is familiar with this phrase. The cherry on top is that after the line is said, he points at a giant red blimp in the sky that hovers above the Krusty Krab. Altogether, it's not hard to deduce that they may be joking about a woman's period. Let's talk SpongeBob Drama. After Season 3, creator Stephen Hillenburg pitched ending the show and doing a feature-length movie as well. While the film was made and the fans felt satisfied, Nickelodeon decided to do more episodes. They allowed the show to go on, but changed the team entirely. Hillenburg left the writing staff, and Paul Tibbitt filled his shoes. Apparently, things at the office were tense. There was a war between storyboarders versus animators. And many people were complaining they weren't being compensated enough for their hard work. Apparently, almost everyone was replaced, including writers, animators, and directors. As you can probably imagine, the tone of the show was completely different, and the tension definitely showed. As fans of the show, we can attest to the vibe being different. Watch an episode from Season 1 and Season 4 back to back and you'll see what we're talking about. This next segment is going to blow your mind. So, as you know, characters sometimes go through about 1 billion iterations before the creators and animators decide on a final look and personality. We all know Patrick as the lovable and simple starfish who has poor common sense, but is a fierce friend. He is joyful and sweet, and looks very approachable and very huggable. When Hillenburg was storyboarding the pilot, however, Patrick could not have been more different. He was written to have a huge chip on his shoulder because he was pink. On top of that, he was supposed to have a roadside bar and was described as a bully. Can you imagine how much that would have changed the show? We are so glad they decided to toss that idea out the window and give us the Patrick we know and love. What a close call! The SpongeBob theme song is equal parts so catchy and so deeply annoying to listen to. We would argue that it is one of the biggest earworms known to mankind and is near impossible to get out of your head. In the song, it references an island which the creators have called Bikini Atoll. As it turns out, this unassuming isle with a modest 3 palm trees has a rather dark history. The official Nickelodeon synopsis and writers have confirmed that underneath Bikini Atoll is a confirmed atomic testing site. In the aftermath of World War II, the UN made the US govern multiple islands in the northern Pacific, including Bikini Atoll. There, they tested and developed advancements in nuclear weapons technology and detonated 67 nuclear weapons on these islands. So putting that all together, that means it is more than likely that all our colorful friends are living in the very spot the bomb went off. Let's go back to Patrick for a moment. He is more than just the sidekick of SpongeBob and is an integral part of the show. But like SpongeBob, he too has his share of inappropriate jokes. One scene we took a second look at is when he builds a sort of sculpture out of sand in a moment of boredom. The issue is, what he makes is a pretty suggestive shape. What's worse is that after it takes on this phallic-like shape, Patrick begins licking it up and down. While it might be made to be an innocent moment, it does make us squirm and question what the animators were thinking. Our tip for the future for them is to maybe just steer clear of suggestive licking altogether. There was a Nickelodeon special released in 2005 called The Endless Summer, which caused quite a stir. In it, Mr. Krabs is scheming on how to make more money, and decides that causing global warming will be just the ticket. By pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, he creates warm temperatures year-round, allowing his restaurant to flourish. His pool can stay open, and customers are very pleased indeed. Things obviously get out of control. Bikini Bottom becomes a burning wasteland. Everyone decides to move north because the climate is too hot, and the pool water evaporates entirely. 6 years after the short was released, Fox stumbled upon it and declared that it was pushing a liberal agenda. With the forest fires in California and the recent UN report stating that 1 million species risk extinction, we're hoping that this episode won't play out in real life, and encourage viewers to educate themselves about what they can do to help our planet. A lot of the funniest moments in SpongeBob are so random and have nothing to do with the actual plot of the episode. Often, the characters find themselves in insane situations and must endure a comedy of errors to find their way out. Our favorite example is when Patrick and SpongeBob end up wet and unclothed inside of the Krusty Krab. When Mr. Krabs walks in, SpongeBob is handing Patrick some money and states, "This isn't what it looks like." While a funny moment, it gets kids to question the meaning behind that phrase. We wouldn't be surprised if while watching this episode, many kids asked their guardians what it does look like, and we feel sorry for those who had to awkwardly explain. Okay, we might be a little late to the game, but did you know that the Krusty Krab is actually a lobster trap? Sorry if this is old news, but we are still spiraling about it. If you are in fact hearing this for the first time, join us on having a collective light bulb going off moment. Okay, let's break it down. So Mr. Krab is using a lobster trap as a family-style fast food restaurant, which is both very funny and also dark, but the plot thickens. Remember how that plankton from the chum bucket is always after Mr. Krab's secret ingredient? Well, fans have given us a plethora of theories, and we would like you to weigh in. In the episode Imitation Crab, we see an official image of the recipe for Krabby Patties, while we later find out in the episode Friend of Foe that he uses King Neptune's powder. But fans suggest that originally he used Imitation Crab, which teeters on crab cannibalism. SpongeBob is an all-around weird dude. He's always random, and we often find ourselves thinking of why the animators made him such a bona fide kook, and what choices went into making him this way. One moment in question is SpongeBob's obsession with wearing underwear on his head. If you're a longtime fan of the show, you'll know it's not just a one-off joke. It literally happens all the time. While it's a surefire way to make kids laugh, they push the envelope when the underwear covers his nose and protrudes in a suggestive way. If you think this is harmless, think of the many other ways they could have drawn this. For example, it didn't have to cover his nose to get the joke across, it could have just covered his eyes. But no, they made the very real decision to make it look like, well, you know. Let's take a peek at the episode Krusty Dogs. First off, the title alone is gross, but we'll put that aside for now. In it, SpongeBob makes a Krabby Patty out of spare Krabby Patty meat and presents it to his boss, Mr. Krabs. Krabs asks SpongeBob to make it from leftover meat, and SpongeBob obliges. All is going along swimmingly until Mr. Krabs takes Krabby Patties off the menu, which is met with a lot of panic from SpongeBob and Squidward. As true die-hard fans of the Krabby Patty, they are outraged that the Krusty Dog has taken over. The two of them team up to brainstorm ways to get the Krabby Patty back. In a conversation, SpongeBob tells Squidward that they have to have stronger tactics, to which Squidward replies, "Right, something that'll make Mr. Krabs' whole wiener thing blow right up in his face." It conjures quite the image. While there is a lot of love between all the characters in SpongeBob, we never have true love interests. As we learned, the creators saw them as all asexual beings and described SpongeBob and Patrick as bachelors of Bikini Bottom. In the episode Rockabye Bivalve, however, things get serious. The two friends discover a baby scallop and decide to raise it on their own, along with discussing who will be the mother and who will be the father. When two fish see the two boys, a thought bubble appears that says sponge plus star equals clam, which essentially means they thought that Patrick and SpongeBob created the clam themselves. Because people don't even like the friends holding hands, you can imagine that some small-minded people didn't like the idea that these two men could father a child, let alone create one. Our thought is, they make a beautiful family. We would have really liked to see how this kid would have grown up with these two parents. In the Season 1 Episode 2, Sandy tells SpongeBob and Patrick that she is extremely homesick for home Texas. Being a squirrel, it makes sense. Feeling bad for her, the boys cook up a sweet little plan to host a Texas-themed party for her at the Krusty Krab. While this episode is all fun and games, it takes a turn in the middle. While discussing how to cheer Sandy up, Patrick suggests that they bring Texas down under the sea. SpongeBob then replies, "Patrick, you can't just... That's it! Patrick, your genius is showing!" Patrick replies, "Where?" while covering his pants. It's just a quick moment and isn't all that offensive, but still very adult in nature. Last but not least, we have a classic episode, Just One Bite. In it, Squidward expresses his distaste for Krabby Patties. SpongeBob is of course shocked and urges Squidward to try one, saying, "The only people who don't like a Krabby Patty have never tasted one." Squidward is resistant, but eventually tries one secretly and discovers he loves them. This love affair escalates, and he ends up breaking into the Krusty Krab late at night to try and get the ready-made ones in the vault. In the original version of the episode, the restaurant's security system causes 2 explosions. This ended up being too violent, and Nickelodeon had to censor it. Now, when aired, either both explosions are cut or one of them is. While no one attached to the show actually spoke about why they decided to change the episode, there is some talk that because the episode aired a month after 9/11, they thought it was insensitive. In Canada, however, they have the original version. We hoped you enjoyed checking out the weirdest and wackiest hidden jokes and messages in SpongeBob. Did we miss anything? Let us know in the comments below and we'll be sure to cover it in the future. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss another video. Until next time.